labeling, not properly. Yo, what's up? Moto Chino here, and we're gonna be talking about 5 mistakes that beginner, newbie, do-it-yourself mechanics make. A lot of these mistakes I made myself, so don't feel too bad, because that's the reason why I got into the field. All right, so let's dive right in. So the first one is gonna be standard metric tools and what the difference is. You got here, for example, a 13 socket, 6-point. And then you got here a 1/2 inch socket, 6-point. Yes, they both may be very close and similar alike, but they are not. They're off by a few millimeters, maybe a fraction of a millimeter off. And it's gonna be just enough for you to strip that bolt. Or maybe not, sometimes it'll work. What ends up happening is it gets stuck on it because there's just not enough clearance. You jam it into it, a bolt that's supposed to be standard, and you throw a metric on it. You know, it wants to, but then you jam it in there, now it's stuck. Another way you could mess a bolt up is, you know, especially if you're using Allens, you're not using the proper standard or metric for what the bolt calls for. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna have too much space in the bolt and not enough tool. So you'll round it out. When you round it out, it becomes a pain in the ass to get out or drive in. That's not fun. Yes, there's extraction tools, but as a do-it-yourself home mechanic and you're first starting off, I doubt you have any of those tools. If you have a mix of both standard and metric tools, I suggest you find the one that fits in there snugger than the other, but don't jam it in. What is SAE, you ask? SAE means the Society of Automotive Engineers, and they use their system with fractions. So 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, 7/8, so on and so forth. Metric, on the other hand, is simple. It's just millimeters all across the board. How many millimeters is this thing? From 1 to 100, whatever. So some that may be a lot easier. Most motorcycles or cars, tools, or bolts that are on American-made things are probably gonna be SAE, but not everything, because over the years I've been noticing a lot more metric being involved in these Harleys that I work on. The brakes, for example, are made by Brembo. Those are gonna be metric. A lot of the fork components are gonna be metric. So, you know, really put some thought into whether or not you're gonna be using your standard or your metric tools on the certain project, you know, because it all depends on what you're working on in the bike. So our next topic is gonna be torque wrenches. I hope you've seen one of these. So the importance of a torque wrench is so that you can properly drive the bolt into whatever you're driving it into with the proper amount of pressure. Okay, so number one, so it doesn't strip, so it doesn't break, so the threads don't mess up whatever component you're threading into. Torque wrenches also ensure that the bolt is going to hold down whatever it needs to hold down the proper way. And it gives it an even disbursement of pressure around the whole thing. That's why there's torque sequences as well. You crisscross patterns, you know, and your zigzag patterns, all that, you know, really matters. If you mess that up, you know, you under torque something, you might get a leak from your gasket. So I would always recommend using a torque wrench, man, and looking up some torque specs online. You know, there's a great resource you can go look up on forums or anywhere, man. It's the power of Google, you know, but do it right if you're gonna do something. Don't just yank it down and then hope that it holds on later on, or don't just force something down and then snap the bolt and then now you gotta extract the bolt without the head on it. So, you know, just trust me on this. Use a torque wrench. You're gonna thank me later. And you know, torque wrenches are moderately cheap nowadays. You can find a decent one from Harbor Freight. I'll put the link in below. I'm not affiliated or being sponsored, but if you're gonna use price as a reason for you to not do something right, then find the cheaper route and then invest into something when you got a little more money. It's just how it works, you know? Then sell your cheapo tool or something, pass it on to somebody else who wants to do stuff on their own. Pay it forward. Torque wrenches have a couple different values. So you got Newton meters, which is commonly used in Europe or any country abroad. Then you got foot pounds, then you got inch pounds. So for foot pounds, it's usually for bigger bolts that require, you know, a lot more pressure to be put on it. And inch pounds are for the tiny smaller ones that are, you know, that just need enough. Because if you confuse foot pounds for inch pounds, something that needed inch pounds, then you might be in a world of trouble. So just make sure you check for sure if it's gonna be foot pounds or inch pounds. You might have to get an inch pound torque wrench and a foot pound torque wrench, and they all have different ranges from like 25 to 100 foot pounds. You might have a 50 to 300 foot pound torque wrench, which is pretty big. or you might have 25 inch-pound to 100 or 200 inch-pound ones. So buy the right one accordingly, but definitely buy yourself a couple, one or two, just so that you can use one with the wide variety, with the wide range for all the different torque specs that you're gonna need. So yes, very important. All right, so the next subject is gonna be Loctite and what type of Loctite to use. Loctite comes in a very amount of colors. You're gonna have, you know, your blues, your reds, your greens. Now in my field, I don't see myself using greens very much. Don't need it. Blue and red, on the other hand, you're gonna need. Highly recommend getting yourself a bottle of each. And when you decide to drive in whatever bolt or nut that you're going to, it's a motorcycle, it vibrates a lot. Put the blue at least. For things that are gonna call for the red, like you're in the primary and you're doing some drive components, right? The clutch hub nut or the compensator bolt, those are gonna need red, because you know they're under a lot of pressure, they're gonna be a lot of heat, you're gonna be under a lot of stress. So the red ones are to ensure that it doesn't back out. The blue ones, on the other hand, you know, it's supposed to be easily removable, but they're also just tacky enough so that the bolt's not gonna back out on its own. The last thing you want rolling down the road is for a few of your derby couple bolts just to rattle out, and then now all the oil comes spilling out of your primary, and yeah, you know, you're gonna cause a whole mess behind your rear tire. It might go down. Not saying that something like this happened to me, but put blue Loctite on stuff. Just a little bit of drop, one drop on the threads. You know, you're feeling a little froggy, you could put 2 drops, you know, but at least put 1. Ensure your bolts don't back out, and yeah, Loctite. It's that simple, okay? Don't kill yourself. This is 2 wheels, not 4 or 3. All right, this next one's gonna be about wires and repairing wires, repairing cut wires. You know, a lot of you guys who wanna install parts or they wanna fix a break in their wire, they do one of these thingies, right? All right, they do one of those heat shrink, heat wrap. And then all you gotta do to the wire is this, and it just comes right apart. Don't twist your wires, guys. I'm telling you this right now. Do not twist your wires. Yes, it makes an electric connection. Yes, it's gonna keep your headlight on. Sure, but for how long? Remember, we're on a vibrating machine. It's gonna vibrate loose. Solder, guys, learn how to solder. It's not that hard. Go to YouTube. I'm not gonna sit here and teach you guys how to solder. That's probably gonna be on a whole different video. Go to YouTube, learn the basics, learn how to solder, get yourself a cheapo soldering machine from Amazon. I'll put that link down below for you guys too. And learn how to solder the right way. You know, do it nice. Do a nice little bead. Put some heat shrink over it. Get it nice and tight. Waterproof it. You'll be fine. That wire is gonna come out stronger than it was if it was in one piece already from the factory. So, learn how to solder. Please, for God's sakes. It's gonna help you in the long run, and I'm telling you right now, you won't get any electrical problems if you do it the right way. Learn how to solder. Don't do the twisty stuff, don't do the butt connectors, you know, and all that stuff, or crimping this and that, and then if you need to do connectors, fine, do the connectors with all that, but if you need to just make a wire solid, learn how to solder it. The last one's gonna be about not properly labeling your bolts, your parts, as you're taking them off. I do it constantly. Little Ziploc bags that you get from parts or whatever, maybe you can get them at the grocery store. Put all your bolts in it, label them, put a piece of tape, the Sharpie on it so you can reuse it later. Write down where the bolts came from. I've seen guys do some pretty ingenious shit with it, like take a piece of cardboard and then push the bolts into the cardboard and then write down with the Sharpie, you know, which bolt is this, where did it come out of? Organization is key in order for anything in life, right? In my opinion. So organize your shit, make sure you label everything as you're doing a project, and look at the manual. Find a manual somewhere online. Get the torque specs, get the procedures, because if you're just gonna be doing it off the top of your head, you may mess something up, you know, and we love these things. These are our babies, you know. We wanna make sure that we're doing right by them. Nobody likes to waste money, so do it right the first time. Go to forums, you know, they're everywhere. find manuals, downloadable PDFs. Some people, you know, do really good step-by-steps online. And if all else fails, take it to a shop, your local shop or a dealership, or, you know, support local. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, take it to the dealership, you know, support the local guys too. You know, they're out there busting their ass trying to make a living, and help them out. But yeah, if you wanna take it to a dealership, take it to a dealership too. We got, you know, all the manuals that we ever need. If you wanna do it on your own and you're mechanically inclined at least a little bit, then give it a shot, man. It's your project, it's your bike. Just keep these tips in mind when you are working on it, all right? And you'll be just fine. There you go. Hope you liked the video. If they brought you guys any value or anything, make sure to like and subscribe, and maybe even hit the notification bell. I'll be dropping more videos like this soon, and you know, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about this content. I can be dropping more of this as well. I guess I'll see you in the next one then. Peace out.